Two organizations that seem to have almost nothing in common have independently reached an almost identical conclusion about emergency food storage: FEMA and the Mormon Church. Their missions, beliefs, and approaches to life are very different. Yet when you look at the foods each recommends, families keep on hand, the lists are strikingly similar. That isn't a coincidence. Both organizations have spent decades studying the same question: what foods give a household the best chance of staying secure when the normal food supply becomes unreliable? Despite their different backgrounds, they arrived at nearly the same 12 essentials. What's surprising is that these recommendations aren't built around expensive survival products or specialty emergency meals. They're simple, affordable foods that can usually be found at any local grocery store, and most cost less than $2. The real surprise isn't the foods themselves, it's why they made the list. Each item serves a purpose that many people overlook, and the reasoning behind those choices is far more practical than most shoppers realize. We'll count down all 12, but pay especially close attention to the final 3. That's where the recommendations become the most revealing. And the number 1 item goes far beyond simply helping you build a food reserve. It has the potential to completely change the way your family approaches long-term preparedness. Number 12. Crackers. Crackers may be one of the most overlooked foods on this entire list, and that says a lot about how most people picture emergency preparedness. Many assume FEMA recommends them simply because they're inexpensive, but that's not the real reason. Their value comes from solving a problem that most families don't think about until they're already dealing with it. During many real-world emergencies, the biggest obstacle isn't running out of food. It's losing the ability to prepare the food you already have. Take a look around a typical kitchen. Most households rely on an electric stove, microwave, toaster, air fryer, or other appliances that all depend on power. If the electricity suddenly goes out, those conveniences disappear instantly. And during severe weather, natural disasters, or other disruptions, very few people want to search the garage for a camping stove they haven't used in years. That's where crackers become surprisingly useful. They require absolutely no preparation, no cooking, no boiling water, no fuel, and no equipment. You simply open the package and they're ready to eat. A standard box of saltine crackers contains well over 1,000 calories, making it a practical source of quick energy. But their biggest advantage is how easily they pair with other shelf-stable foods. Peanut butter eaten straight from the jar can become tiring after a while. The same is true for canned tuna or canned chicken eaten directly from the container. Add a handful of crackers, however, and those ingredients become a much more satisfying meal, providing a balanced combination of carbohydrates, protein, and fat without ever turning on a stove. There is one limitation to keep in mind. Crackers generally don't stay fresh as long as many other dry pantry staples, especially if they're exposed to heat or humidity. They're best stored in a cool, dry location and rotated regularly as part of your normal grocery routine. The easiest strategy is simply to buy varieties your family already enjoys so they can be replaced naturally as you use them. That idea reflects an important principle behind every item on this countdown. A well-rounded emergency food supply shouldn't consist only of products designed to last for decades. It should also include foods that can be opened and eaten immediately when time, power, or cooking equipment aren't available. Crackers are one of the best examples of that balance between convenience and preparedness. The next food earns its place for a reason that rarely appears in emergency food guides, and surprisingly, it has very little to do with nutrition. Number 11. Pasta. Most emergency food lists spend a great deal of time talking about nutrition, calories, and shelf life. But they often overlook one simple question that becomes incredibly important during a long disruption. Will your family actually want to eat it? That's one of the biggest reasons pasta deserves a place in long-term food storage. A 1-pound box of dried pasta usually costs between $1 and $2, while providing around 8 servings, making it one of the most affordable pantry staples available. The value is obvious, but price isn't what makes it so useful. What sets pasta apart is its ability to create meals that people genuinely enjoy. Children are already familiar with it. Adults usually have favorite recipes built around it. And it brings a sense of normalcy that many other inexpensive emergency foods simply can't match. Imagine a family several days into a week-long power outage. Their pantry is still stocked with rice, beans, canned vegetables, and shelf-stable protein. Nutritionally, they're doing just fine. But after eating meals with similar flavors and textures day after day, fatigue begins to set in. Then, someone prepares a simple plate of pasta topped with tomato sauce. Suddenly, the meal feels completely different. The texture changes, the aroma changes, and for a moment it feels less like surviving an emergency and more like sitting down to a familiar family dinner. That emotional lift is often underestimated. During extended emergencies, maintaining morale can be almost as valuable as maintaining calories. A comforting meal helps reduce stress, keeps routines intact, and makes difficult situations feel a little more manageable. Another advantage is pasta's versatility. It works well with many of the other foods commonly recommended for emergency storage, including canned tuna, canned chicken, canned vegetables, olive oil, and dried herbs. By mixing those ingredients in different ways, you can create a wide variety of meals instead of serving the same dish over and over again. When stored in its original sealed package and kept in a cool, dry place, dried pasta typically maintains good quality for 2 to 3 years, and in favorable storage conditions, it can often last even longer. One of the core ideas emphasized in the Mormon Church's food storage guidance is simple, but easy to overlook. Store foods your family already eats on a regular basis. That advice makes practical sense because emergency supplies are far more useful when they're familiar, easy to rotate, and welcomed at the dinner table instead of becoming a last resort. Number 10. Peanut butter. If you ask emergency preparedness specialists which pantry item offers the greatest value for the money, one answer comes up again and again: peanut butter. It's already a staple in most American homes, yet many people don't realize just how useful it can be during an emergency. A single large jar contains nearly 3,000 calories, making it one of the most energy-dense foods you can buy at a relatively low cost. Reaching that same calorie total with many other grocery items often requires purchasing several different products, while peanut butter delivers it all in one convenient container. But calories are only one part of the equation. Peanut butter also provides a combination of protein and healthy fats, two nutrients that help you feel full for much longer than meals built mostly around carbohydrates. That means a smaller serving can keep hunger under control for an extended period, allowing your overall food supply to last longer when every meal counts. Its versatility is another major advantage. You can spread it on crackers, mix it into oatmeal, pair it with dried fruit, or simply eat it directly from the jar when preparing a full meal isn't practical. It requires no cooking, no refrigeration before opening, and virtually no preparation, making it one of the easiest emergency foods to use. That's one reason organizations like FEMA consistently include peanut butter in their preparedness recommendations. It addresses several important needs at once. It's affordable, calorie-dense, filling, and ready to eat straight from the container. When choosing a jar, it's worth taking a quick look at the ingredient label. In many cases, the best options contain only peanuts and a small amount of salt. Products loaded with corn syrup, added sugars, or hydrogenated oils move further away from the food's natural nutritional profile. As a general rule, a shorter ingredient list usually means a simpler, less processed product. Before we continue, I'd like to hear from you. Is there a pantry item you always keep stocked that you think deserves more attention? Share it in the comments. It's always interesting to see the practical ideas that real families rely on every day. Coming up next is a food that many people think of as nothing more than an inexpensive breakfast. In reality, it's one of the most effective pantry staples for keeping hunger under control and making your emergency food supply go much further. Number 9. Oats. Oats are one of the most affordable foods you can add to an emergency pantry. A large container typically costs only a few dollars while providing around 25 to 30 servings, which often works out to less than 30 cents per meal. Very few breakfast foods offer that kind of value. But affordability isn't the biggest reason oats belong on this list. Many common breakfast choices, such as sugary cereals, white toast, or snack bars, cause blood sugar to rise quickly and then drop just as fast. Before long, you're hungry again, reaching for another snack or looking for something else to eat well before lunchtime. That cycle quietly increases both food consumption and grocery costs. One extra snack here and another there may not seem like much, but over weeks and months, it adds up. Oats behave very differently because of their nutritional makeup. They contain beta-glucan, a form of soluble fiber that has been widely researched for its ability to slow digestion and promote longer-lasting fullness. A bowl of oatmeal eaten around 7 in the morning often keeps people satisfied until mid-morning or even lunchtime, something many processed breakfast foods struggle to accomplish. Their versatility makes them even more valuable. Oats combine easily with several of the other pantry staples on this countdown. Stir in a spoonful of peanut butter for extra protein and healthy fats. Add raisins or dried apricots for natural sweetness. Or mix in some powdered milk to boost both flavor and nutrition. Each of those additions creates a more satisfying meal without adding much cost or requiring extra preparation. For older adults especially, beginning the day with a filling, balanced breakfast can encourage more consistent eating habits throughout the rest of the day. That makes oats beneficial, not only from a nutritional standpoint, but also from a financial one, since meals that keep you full longer often reduce unnecessary snacking. Simple foods like oats are a good reminder that emergency preparedness isn't always about buying specialty survival products. Sometimes the smartest choices are inexpensive staples that people already know how to cook, enjoy eating, and can easily rotate through everyday meals. The next item may look like just another ordinary product sitting on the grocery shelf, but one small detail on its label makes a huge difference. Miss it, and you could end up storing something that's much closer to candy than real fruit. Number 8. Dried fruit. Fresh fruit is one of the healthiest foods you can include in your diet, but it's also one of the first things to disappear when everyday routines are interrupted. Bananas can become overripe within just a few days. Berries often spoil in less than a week, and even fruits with a longer shelf life, such as apples and oranges, eventually have to be eaten or thrown away. Dried fruit offers a practical solution to that problem. By removing most of the moisture, fruit becomes much more shelf-stable while still retaining many of its valuable nutrients. It becomes lightweight enough to carry in an emergency kit and compact enough to store without taking up much space, making it an excellent addition to any preparedness pantry. Some of the most popular options include raisins, dried apricots, and dried cranberries because they're easy to find, relatively inexpensive, and familiar to most families. Nutritionally, dried fruit contributes several things that many long-term pantry staples lack. It provides natural sugars for quick energy, along with vitamins and minerals that foods like rice, beans, and pasta don't supply in significant amounts. It also introduces a bit of natural sweetness, helping break up the repetitive flavors that often come with eating shelf-stable foods for several days in a row. That may sound like a small advantage, but during an extended disruption it can make a noticeable difference. A handful of raisins mixed into oatmeal, or a few dried apricots served alongside nuts can transform an otherwise plain meal into something much more enjoyable. Small changes like these help add variety and make stored food feel less repetitive over time. There's one important detail, however, that many shoppers overlook. A large percentage of commercially available dried fruit, especially products like cranberries, mango slices, and pineapple pieces, contains significant amounts of added sugar. In some cases, the final product resembles candy more than it does whole fruit. For anyone monitoring blood sugar or simply trying to make healthier food choices, reading the ingredient label is essential. The best products usually have very short ingredient lists, ideally containing nothing more than the fruit itself. If you see ingredients such as corn syrup, added cane sugar, or artificial colors, you're looking at a much more processed product than the packaging may suggest. When stored in a sealed container and kept in a cool, dry location, quality dried fruit generally maintains good quality for 6 months to a year, and sometimes even longer, depending on the variety and storage conditions. Number 7. Canned vegetables. There's a common mistake that many people make when putting together an emergency food supply for the first time. They fill their shelves with rice, pasta, crackers, oats, peanut butter, and a few sources of protein. Looking at the pantry, it feels like everything important has been covered. Then, weeks or even months later, they realize something essential is missing. Vegetables. Canned vegetables are often overlooked, even though they're among the simplest and most affordable additions you can make to a food storage plan. Green beans, corn, peas, and carrots typically cost only $1 or $2 per can, yet they provide nutrients that many shelf-stable staples simply don't. Foods like rice, pasta, and crackers are excellent sources of calories, but they contribute very little fiber, along with only modest amounts of many vitamins and minerals. For adults over 50 especially, daily fiber intake is already lower than recommended in many cases. When meals become heavily dependent on dry pantry staples, that nutritional gap can become even larger. Canned vegetables help fill that gap in an inexpensive and practical way. Their value goes beyond nutrition alone. They also improve the overall quality of a meal. Stirring a can of corn into rice completely changes its flavor and texture. Mixing peas into pasta adds color and variety. Serving green beans alongside canned chicken transforms what could feel like emergency rations into something much closer to a normal dinner. That difference matters more than many preparedness guides acknowledge. During a prolonged disruption, people are far more likely to eat enough when meals still resemble the food they're accustomed to. If every meal begins to feel repetitive or overly bland, appetite often decreases, even when enough calories are available. When shopping, low-sodium or no-salt added varieties are usually the best choice if they're available. If regular canned vegetables are the only option, simply draining and rinsing them before serving can remove a significant amount of the added sodium. Properly stored in sealed cans and kept in a cool, dry location, most canned vegetables maintain good quality for anywhere from 2 to 5 years. Another useful strategy is to build variety into your pantry instead of buying large quantities of just one vegetable. Stocking a mixture of corn, peas, carrots, and green beans creates far more meal options than filling an entire shelf with a single product. That variety becomes increasingly valuable the longer you rely on stored food. The next item is something many people already own but rarely think about. It often sits untouched in the back of the pantry until the electricity goes out for several days, and suddenly it becomes one of the most valuable foods in the house. Number 6. Canned fruit. Canned fruit isn't usually one of the first foods people think about when building an emergency pantry. It often sits quietly on the grocery shelf, rarely attracting much attention, and many shoppers only buy it when they have a specific recipe or dessert in mind. But its value becomes much more obvious when everyday conveniences disappear. Imagine the power has been out for several days. The bananas that looked perfect at the beginning of the week have become overripe. Grapes have lost their freshness. Strawberries spoiled almost as quickly as they were purchased. Most of the fresh fruit is either gone or no longer worth eating. Meanwhile, the can of peaches sitting in the pantry hasn't changed at all. It doesn't need refrigeration, electricity, or any preparation. You simply open the can and it's ready to eat. That's what makes canned fruit so valuable. It's not meant to replace fresh fruit when everything is functioning normally. Its strength is that it remains available when fresh produce is no longer an option. Experienced food storage planners often emphasize an important principle. Emergency food isn't just about accumulating calories. It's about maintaining a balanced and sustainable diet over time. A pantry stocked only with rice, beans, and pasta may provide enough energy for weeks, but after 10 days or more of eating nearly identical meals, most people begin craving something different. A can of peaches, pears, pineapple, or mixed fruit introduces new flavors, different textures, and a bit of natural sweetness that can make repetitive meals feel much more enjoyable. That variety isn't just about comfort. It can encourage people to continue eating balanced meals during stressful situations instead of losing interest in food because every meal feels the same. Many canned fruits also retain useful amounts of nutrients such as vitamin C and vitamin A, although the exact levels vary depending on the type of fruit and how it's processed. When shopping, one small detail on the label deserves attention. Look at what the fruit is packed in. Products preserved in 100% fruit juice are generally a healthier choice than those packed in heavy syrup, which can add a significant amount of extra sugar over repeated servings. Canned fruit shouldn't be viewed as a substitute for fresh produce. Instead, it's an insurance policy for the days when fresh fruit simply isn't available. Seen from that perspective, it becomes easy to understand why it deserves a place in a well-rounded emergency food supply. If this countdown has made you think differently about the foods already sitting in your pantry, consider leaving a like on the video. It only takes a moment, and it helps more people discover information that could prove useful when they're planning their own emergency food storage. The next item catches many people by surprise. Not because it's unusual to see it on a preparedness list, but because the real reason it's included is rarely explained the way it should be. Number 5. Powdered milk. Many people think of powdered milk as nothing more than a replacement for fresh milk when the refrigerator is empty. But that's not why it consistently appears on emergency food recommendations from both FEMA and the Mormon Church. Its real purpose is much more important. One of the biggest weaknesses in many emergency food plans isn't a lack of calories or even protein. It's the gradual shortage of nutrients that common pantry staples simply don't provide in meaningful amounts. When people begin building food storage, they usually focus on foods like rice, beans, pasta, and oats. Those choices are excellent for supplying energy, protein, and long shelf life. But they often leave out key nutrients such as calcium, vitamin D, and dairy protein. Those nutrients play important roles in maintaining strong bones, supporting healthy muscles, and helping the nervous system function properly. As people get older, particularly after age 50, maintaining an adequate intake becomes even more important. A food storage plan may appear complete because it contains enough calories to last for weeks, yet still falls short nutritionally if these essential nutrients are missing. That's where powdered milk fills an important gap. Its practical advantages become obvious during an extended power outage. Fresh milk is usually one of the first refrigerated foods to spoil once electricity is lost. Powdered milk, by contrast, doesn't require refrigeration while it's being stored. Kept sealed in a cool, dry place, many varieties maintain good quality for months, and some can last for years depending on the product and storage conditions. There are also different types designed for different purposes. Instant powdered milk mixes quickly with water, making it convenient for everyday use and cooking. Non-fat dry milk generally offers a longer shelf life, making it especially useful for long-term emergency storage. If rice and beans form the foundation of a preparedness pantry, powdered milk helps supply nutrients that those staples simply can't provide on their own. It fills one of the most common nutritional gaps found in emergency food supplies and helps create a more balanced approach to long-term storage. The next item addresses something much less obvious. It's a problem that develops gradually, often without people noticing until its effects have already accumulated. For adults over 50 in particular, this next pantry staple deserves far more attention than it usually receives. Number 4. Canned meat. As we get older, our bodies go through gradual changes that often happen so slowly we barely notice them. One of the most important is the steady loss of muscle mass. At the same time, the body becomes less efficient at using dietary protein to repair and maintain muscle tissue. Over the years, this can contribute to reduced strength, slower recovery after physical activity, and a gradual decline in overall mobility, changes that become especially noticeable after the age of 50. That's one of the key reasons canned meat appears on both FEMA's preparedness recommendations and the Mormon Church's long-term food storage guidelines. Foods such as canned tuna, salmon, chicken, and corned beef provide complete protein, meaning they contain all of the essential amino acids the body needs to build and maintain muscle. While many plant-based foods contain protein as well, they don't always provide those amino acids in the same balance. For older adults, that distinction becomes particularly important because the body's ability to utilize protein naturally decreases with age. Canned meat also supplies another nutrient that's easy to overlook: vitamin B12. This vitamin plays a vital role in maintaining a healthy nervous system, supporting brain function, and producing red blood cells. Because vitamin B12 deficiency becomes more common as people grow older, and because it's found primarily in animal-based foods, keeping reliable sources on hand can be especially valuable. Beyond its nutritional benefits, canned meat is incredibly practical. A can of tuna can become a quick lunch in minutes. Mix canned salmon with rice and canned vegetables, and you have a balanced meal that requires very little preparation. Canned chicken can be added to soups, pasta, casseroles, or salads, creating several different meals from a single pantry staple. Its flexibility makes it one of the easiest proteins to include in a long-term food supply. If canned fruit helps provide important vitamins, and canned vegetables contribute fiber and minerals, canned meat fills another critical role by supplying high-quality protein that supports long-term strength, muscle maintenance, and overall physical function. Taken together, these foods create a much more balanced emergency pantry than relying on grains and carbohydrates alone. The next item is surprisingly inexpensive, often costing around $1.50 per pound. It comes in plain, unremarkable packaging, receives very little advertising, and yet it may be one of the most underrated foods you can possibly keep in long-term storage. Number 3. Dry beans and lentils. Imagine someone offered you a product with the following qualities. It costs only $1 or $2 per pound, provides protein, fiber, and long-lasting energy in a single package, has served as a dietary staple for civilizations around the world for thousands of years, and, when stored properly, can remain usable for decades. It might sound like an incredible investment. In reality, it's simply a bag of dried beans. Despite offering exceptional value, beans often sit quietly on grocery store shelves with little attention. They aren't heavily advertised, they rarely become trendy, and they're easy to overlook. Yet when it comes to long-term food storage, very few foods perform as well across so many important categories. They deliver protein, are naturally rich in fiber, provide a substantial number of calories, store exceptionally well, and remain one of the least expensive nutritious foods available. Finding another pantry staple that checks all of those boxes at once is surprisingly difficult. Long-term food storage research conducted at Brigham Young University has shown that properly stored dried beans can remain usable for several decades. Few everyday foods can match that level of longevity. Think about the difference. Restaurant meals disappear in a single sitting. Fresh produce may last only days. Most packaged foods are designed to stay fresh for months. Properly stored dried beans, however, can remain part of a food supply for a significant portion of a lifetime. Another major advantage is fiber. Many Americans already consume less fiber than nutrition experts recommend, and emergency food supplies built mostly around grains such as rice and pasta can make that shortfall even greater. Beans help balance that equation by supplying both fiber and protein in generous amounts, creating meals that are not only filling, but also more nutritionally complete. Lentils deserve special attention as well. Unlike many traditional beans, lentils typically cook in just 20 to 30 minutes and usually don't require soaking overnight. During situations where fuel, clean water, or cooking time is limited, that faster preparation can become a meaningful advantage rather than just a convenience. Number 2. White rice. Walk into homes almost anywhere in the world, and there's a good chance you'll find white rice somewhere in the kitchen. Few foods have been as widely adopted across so many cultures. For thousands of years, it has been a daily staple throughout Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa, feeding billions of people across generations. Rice has remained a cornerstone of human diets for one simple reason: it consistently delivers. While many foods come and go, rice has stood the test of time because it offers a combination of qualities that's difficult to match. Its value isn't based on a single outstanding feature. It's the way all of its strengths come together. A 20-pound bag of white rice can often be purchased for less than $20, providing hundreds of individual servings at an extremely low cost per meal. It's easy to prepare, stores exceptionally well, and serves as a foundation for countless different recipes. Perhaps its greatest strength is how well it works with almost every other food on this countdown. Combine rice with beans, and you create a filling meal with complementary protein sources. Add canned tuna, salmon, or chicken, and you have a meal that includes complete protein alongside a reliable source of complex carbohydrates. Mix in canned vegetables, and suddenly you've added fiber, color, vitamins, and minerals without making the meal complicated or expensive. Rice doesn't replace those other foods, it brings them together. It acts as the foundation that turns individual pantry staples into complete, satisfying meals. Long-term storage research conducted at Brigham Young University has demonstrated just how remarkable white rice can be. When properly packaged and stored under suitable conditions, it has remained usable for more than 30 years. Think about what that really means. Over 3 decades, economies rise and fall, technology changes dramatically, and entire generations grow up. Yet a properly stored bag of white rice can still be ready to feed a family after all that time. For a food that often costs only a few cents per serving, that level of stability is extraordinary. But the final item on this list is different from everything we've covered so far.